true. I haven't made it. Have you finished all your assignments?
Well, this is continuing on in Chapter 5. This is vulnerability assessment of a hypothetical DMZ router. What's DMZ stand for?
I know what TMZ stands for.
Demilitarized zone?
That's the one I know of.
That's the most famous one is what, between the Koreas?
Yeah, Koreas.
Yeah. Now you got your threat compromises intellectual property. Copyrighted work developed in-house and stored on intranet servers. What's an intranet?
What?
Intranet.
It's only one area.
In terms of what?
In terms of internet.
Kind of. Yeah, it's kind of a local internet to your business. So like our intranet here has web pages out there you can go to and so forth and resources. Yeah, so it's local to your company. Now, can be copied without permission unless the router is configured to limit access from outsiders. Works copyrighted by others can be stolen. Your organization is liable for that loss to the copyright holder. Espionage or trespass. The information asset router may have little intrinsic value, but other assets protected by this device could be attacked if it does not perform correctly or is compromised. Forces in nature, human error or failure. Trying to think if there's any famous cases of that where somebody just accidentally like give everybody rights. I'm sure there are plenty, but information extortion. If attackers bypass a router or compromise it, you enter your network, they may encrypt your data in place. They may not have stolen it, but unless you pay them to acquire the encryption key, the data is inert and no longer of value to you. Deviation and quality of service. Power system failures are always possible unless suitable electrical power conditioning is provided. Failure is probable over time. ISP connectivity failures can interrupt internet bandwidth. Sabotage or vandalism. Internet protocol is vulnerable to denial of service. This device may be subject to defacement or cache poisoning. I don't think I've really dealt much with cache poisoning. What is a cache?
It's in cache memory processor. It's the thing you get from the bank.
It's a little bit everywhere. You have caches on your local computer. The idea is if you go to the same site type of deal, bring the same images, it recognizes they haven't changed, so it'll bring it up locally instead of pulling it from Italy if you're accessing a site in Italy. On a corporate level, they have caches set up. It's same type of purpose. Websites you go to a lot automatically come up. You may have noticed this when you don't have internet connection. Does it sometimes looks like you're going into a site? It does. The reason why is it's bringing up your cached files. So you don't actually have access to the internet. It just appears like that. And then there's other places too where you see caching. So cache poisoning, I'm guessing they get into your cache and change files. Cache poisoning. Attack. Cache poisoning, also known as DNS poisoning and DNS cache spoofing, involves corrupting an internet server's domain name system table by replacing a valid internet address without another. Oh, that's interesting. What's a domain name system table? How did White Hat's security.com know where to go when I typed it in?
Easy to the URL.
Entered the URL, but that's not how things are stored on the internet. Does anybody know how things are stored? Let me look it up here. Let's see. Who is search? Try to find a decent one. Who is search? I'd put in a domain here like cali.edu. Click lookup. Confirm I'm not a robot. There's reasons for that, but here's your domain name, cali.edu. And this is where all of it's stored at. So our name servers are freedns21.register-servers.com. So when you type in cali.edu, it uses that to help figure out where it's located at. Now you notice the technical contact and administrative contact. What do people do? You think with these Chris Absher? Well, if I want to sell hosting, web services, who would be a good one to send it to? Probably. Yeah, the administrative contact. So if the information is out here, I can write a program, sit there and extract all these email addresses so I can spam them. That's why they ask you if you're a robot. Let's see. Who's another website? CokeIndustries.com. Not a robot. That's not a very good. Some.
Do you know why? How they determine if you're not robot or not? With the that's one.
No, I never have read about that one.
Basically, it analyzes your mouse pattern, basically how it is. They determine whether you're a machine or not, basically how quickly you react, the path you take, and analyzes it and determines if you're not a robot or not. Because a robot would then take it.
Wouldn't move the mouse at all.
This is able to determine whether you're human or not based
on
how you click on the route you take and the time you take.
So what if you don't use a mouse? What if you like to use your tab?
Reaction time.
Reaction time. So if we're really slow to click it, what would it think? Oh. There was there is an instructor, Leo Traverso, teaches math. Sometimes for Cali, sometimes for Butler. He's blind, and I've worked with them with navigating around websites. And somebody who's visually impaired takes a long time to get to the point where they can click that. That's I was just curious if they think he was a robot just because he's super slow. Now they have and Blackboard was one of the worst ones because I was working with him. How he would learn what to click on is he'd like to know he'd need to do 5 tabs, press enter, and that would bring in up the grades or whatever. And there was no way at that point in time to put your cursor, the focus, in the middle. So finally I said, there's no way it goes in the middle. You press tab as much as you want, it won't go there. I said, I'll tell you what, move your mouse over 1.5 inches and click, and you'll be in the middle. Now, of course, what's wrong with what I told him? Yeah, he doesn't have any idea where his mouse is. You know, if his mouse is over here on the right-hand side, he moves it 1.5 inches to the right, then it's not going to be in the middle, is it? So, anyway. This says here, organization who has privacy, and it's got some email addresses here. Register Amazon. Got our domain. They have their own name servers. ns1cokeindustries.com. There's actually a number associated with the website. So if you know the number, you can go directly to that site. I got a website, mrmath.com. Not Mr. Math. Math heals. I used to have a website, mrmath.com. Somebody stole it from me. Maybe because I didn't pay for it. Sorry, but the registry or register who is server respond to the rate limit message due to high query volumes or closes connection without a response. Well, that's not very friendly. Let me go to another one.
You're saying on that one?
GoDaddy. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but it is a valid one. You'd think. But I went to Microsoft.com, login.microsoft without a T, and it brought up it wasn't a bad site, but it didn't bring up Microsoft. Namecheap. Oh, that's Mr. Math. That's the one that I lost. So I was wondering, I don't recognize this stuff. So you got your name servers. When you do hosting, you have to have a name server. That's where the official database is of where's your site stored at. So when you enter an URL like mrmath.com, you go out there, it goes out to the name server, says, hey, I need some information. Where's this at? Gives them the information and sends it on. So if you can go out there and you can corrupt some of those name servers using that cache poisoning, then whenever you enter in cali.edu, I could have it automatically go someplace else. Would that be a very bad thing? That would be, wouldn't it? You could have it go to a very inappropriate site. Somebody enters in cali.edu and takes them a week to figure it out. All of a sudden, it's going to a porn site instead of Cali. You get a lot of people upset, right? Some people fired over that. So again, having that security in place is vital. Okay. Software attacks, internet protocols, vulnerable denial of service. Okay. Outside or IP fingerprinting activities can reveal sensitive information unless suitable controls are implemented. Fingerprinting activities. What does that mean? Fingerprinting activities. Let's see. What does a fingerprint tell you? Yeah. Kind of tell you everything, doesn't it? So if you're fingerprinting, security. So what do you think a fingerprint's going to tell you about whatever it's referring to? Everything? Yeah. So what is fingerprinting, privacy impacts, threat models? In this case, is the capability of a site to identify or re-identify a visiting user. So identify a user, track their user's browsing activity. Now, it's not related just to users, though. You can do a fingerprint of a server. It kind of tells you what ports are open. You can Kind of tells you a little bit of everything. Um, let's see. Technical hardware failures, software failures, old machines theft. Okay. Here's a spreadsheet where they're outlining the different threats. So you're doing a vulnerability assessment. What's TVA stand for?
TVA. Oh, the TVA.
Threat, vulnerability,
Accessibility.
assessment. So again, you're just kind of analyzing, where potential issues are. Risk assessment. Risk assessment evaluates the relative risk for each vulnerability. It assigns a risk rating or score to each information asset. Planning and organizing risk assessment. The goal at this point is to create a method for evaluating the relative risk of each listed vulnerability. Major stages of risk assessment. Plan or organize the process, determine loss frequency, likelihood, evaluate loss magnitude, impact, calculate the risk, and assess risk acceptability. And then it's going back, and you can see those places. Now, determining the loss frequency describes an assessment likelihood of an attack combined with expected probability of success. How do you know that? Statistics, yeah. If you're got a contract with these, like McAfee, and I can't even think who we use here, they'll provide that information to you because it's important to know what's the likelihood that you're going to have this occur. Because do you know how often a worm attacks an organization? Have no clue, right? We don't know the statistics. Would even a McAfee necessarily know it? Only they report it. And that's why some of those places will collect the data. They'll ask you, is it all right to send information back? Because every time they run across a worm in your organization, it sends it back to the main office saying, okay, Callie was attacked again by a worm. And so then they know approximately, how many are, coming in. Have to have that reference to try to get a feel for, what is it going to happen at all. What if a worm attacks Callie every 10 years? Is it that big of a threat?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
In the long run, yeah, but no. But
Yeah.
Today, no.
Yeah. So, it's not probably something we spend a lot of money on. How about if we get attacked 20 times a day?
You got a lot of math students.
Yeah, you got a lot of issues there. Yeah. Use external references for values that have been reviewed, adjusted for your circumstances, and that's what this is talking about. Is you don't know that. You don't know how many times you're being attacked necessarily. So, assign numeric value to likelihood, typically annual value. Targeted by hackers once every 5 years, your analyzed likelihood of attack is 1/5 or 20%. Sony get attacked pretty often.
Hurry up.
By the lizard swarm.
How about if you're attacked hackers once every 5 years? Does that make sense? That statement?
Are there most successful hacks or?
Yeah, that's how I'm sitting there. It's just like I don't think that's right. Once a
So either you got one top-notch security system, or you're not that popular.
Yeah, I'd say a hacker is probably trying to get into your system, any system, probably 5 times a day. Hopefully, they're not successful, like you say. Not once every 5 years. Yeah. Determine an attack success probability by estimating a quantitative value, 10%, for example, for the likelihood of a successful attack, value subject to uncertainty. Then you evaluate the loss magnitude. Next step is to determine how much of an information asset could be lost in a successful attack, also known as loss magnitude or asset exposure. What would be a loss magnitude if somebody hacked into our database here at Cali?
For grades.
For grades?
The student's information.
Student information? What can you do with student information?
You can look at a certain person and hunt them down.
You can hunt them down, stalk them. Yeah. You could steal their identity. How about grades? Why would that be? Which is the worst, do you think?
Probably hunting the student down, depending on what the relationship with the person is.
That's from a personal standpoint, that would be the worst. How about from a business standpoint, what would be the worst?
It'd be the grades.
Grades, right?
Because they can give that information to other colleges.
And then be disreputable.
Yeah. Not even necessarily giving the grades, though, but doing what to them? Altering them. Yeah. So if I go through in every record in the database, I change everybody's grade, I increase it by 1, unless you got an A. Is anybody going to even call in to complain? No, they'll just say, that's weird. I was sure I got a C in a class. It says B. It's like, oh, well, I guess I didn't pay attention to it. Maybe you'll pull out a transcript and you say, well, it does say a C, but now it says a B. Well, I guess I'm happy with that. I'm not going to complain, right?
But if you went down like 20%, then people need to start.
Some people would, yeah. There's like
Some people, most people would.
I started putting zeros in for those missing assignments. Boy, the emails started coming in pretty fast then. A bunch of grades dropped to D's and F's, and I was getting these emails. Can I still turn this in? And I've been real busy, and I hadn't anticipated how many emails. I didn't realize how often people were looking at the grades. So
they
that
put
was.
it on the blackboard on our phones, and so every time you change a grade, we get notifications.
Oh, so that's why they emailed back so fast.
Because you did it at 11 o'clock, my phone went off like crazy.
That's funny. See, I have Blackboard installed on mine, but I don't get those notifications. That's interesting.
Connecting grades.
Let me see. That's let's see. Combines the value of an information asset with the percentage of asset lost in the event of a successful attack. Difficulties involved in evaluating an information asset. How do you put a monetary on the validity of your grades? Is it worth $1 million? 200,000? 50,000? How much is it worth to you think? A college. Put a number to it.
Well, if your grades get hacked,
49,000?
$3.
$3? The what?
If your grades get hacked and changed, you lose college and it's found out, your college loses credibility.
They can, and they could lose their accreditation. Because the worst case is, remember, we don't actually do backups. We do like disaster recoveries. So what if they don't know the grades were modified and changed for 5 years? Hopefully that wouldn't happen, right? But if they didn't notice it for 5 years, what are you going to do? Roll back your database and undo every one of those grades that have been put in those last 5 years?
No.
That'd be a mess, wouldn't it? Now, a good system should go through and verify your grades on hopefully a daily basis. If I was writing a computer system, I'd want it set up so that I had a nightly process goes through and compares. Did your grade from a year ago change for the grade that's in there now? And if there's some issues, I'd have some kind of parameters and so forth. If there's an issue, then I'd automatically email a registrar saying, there's might be a problem. We had 500 grades changed.
You just change your grade for the semester, and then now play what the system.
You could. See, if you're smart like that, then you'd know when to attack it. Because if you attack it right when people are posting grades, then any kind of fail-safe system would, fail, at that point. And yeah.
Just because in case something happens, you're still good.
Yeah, you wouldn't be good anymore then.
No. That's kind of contradicting both words. Like we were talking about the power supply fail-safe. Like mine on my computer, if there's a power outage, it immediately shuts down the computer and saves my work. So that's a fail-safe. So just in case the power goes out, instead of it just turning off and you lose all your data, it says we're about to shut down your PC. I didn't understand why they called it.
Yeah, it seems a weird name.
It is.
Yeah, so how do you evaluate it? You say 50,000. Well, would you spend $100,000 to protect that $50,000 investment?
I mean, if it was that important, then yeah.
See, it would be worth more than 50,000 then, wouldn't it? Because losing your accreditation means you're out of business. Nobody goes to Cali. If our credits wouldn't transfer anywhere, the only classes that should exist is these right here, because they're not meant to transfer directly to a four-year college. They will in a lot of cases, but they're not meant to. They're like trade type classes. So we would be the only ones still operating. Nobody would take college algebra if it didn't transfer, right? One of the meetings I went to in math, in statistics, they wanted to take part of statistics out, and I don't know. There's a bunch of discussion going back and forth, and Wichita State, they just boldly stated in the meeting, they said, if you make these changes, we won't take it for credit. And so they said, what? You won't take it for credit? And it says no, and if you make those changes. Which means if anybody took statistics anywhere at Cali, it wouldn't transfer to Wichita State. So then I finally asked in the meeting, I said, well, if we don't make any changes at all, will it still transfer? Well, yeah, he says, if you don't make any changes, it'll still transfer. We won't reevaluate the class. So I said, well, Cali's not making any changes at all. So any changes they were talking about at the meeting, Cali ignored. I came back and I said, we're not changing anything. Leave everything as is. Yeah, it's a big thing if your class doesn't actually transfer. I was taking a class at Butler, differential equations. This is a review class. I'd taken to review my knowledge and so forth. I'd taken it way back when. And they came in, they had a class like 15 people. And they came in and they said, Wichita State just told us that this won't transfer at all for their engineering. And it'll transfer for their math. Next class, I think we had 3 people left. It had emptied out immensely. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of an important thing. So, yeah, that's how do you evaluate it? How do you put a money to it? You have to. If you're going to figure out how much you're willing to spend to prevent it, then you have to figure out, what it's worth. Okay, estimate the percentage of information asset lost during best case, worst case, most likely scenarios. For the purpose of relative risk assessment, risk equals loss frequency times loss magnitude minus the percentage of risk mitigated by current controls plus an element of uncertainty. I should mention this. We were up in Wichita at one point in time at Southside Center, had a pretty good business there and so forth. And Wichita State told us to get out of Wichita. They said that we can't teach classes there anymore. What I didn't mention is that we sold. Now we were leasing the building up there from Spirit. We had some equipment. It wasn't great equipment. It was like old computers in the classrooms, some old desks. It wasn't very well maintained and so forth. We sold our business in Wichita to WATC, WSU Tech. They bought it for like $3 million. I never have understood that. I kind of do thinking about this now. What did they buy? They didn't buy our students. We kept our students.
They bought land.
We were leasing it.
They bought the college. Right? It's like they bought a contract to teach Wichita.
No, Wichita State actually gave that to them. It's really hard to figure out what did they buy. Um, tables. How much does tables cost?
Not much.
Not that much. Um, computers. How much would computers cost?
Pretty much nothing compared to college life.
Exactly. Pretty much nothing, right? I think what they bought is they bought the curriculum. So they bought all the curriculum such that it would transfer. That's the only thing I can figure. I don't know why else they would have paid us, because it's our employees that were working at Southside Center. They actually had to go and work for WATC. They couldn't. They couldn't work for. Well, some of them couldn't work for Cali. Some could. You could say, well, they bought the people. I don't think that's legal. You actually they could just quit, right? So, um, but being able to understand where what they should cover is important because WATC now transfers a lot of their credits up to Wichita State. So again, putting a value on some of this isn't that easy. So, factors of risk. Risk is the probability of successful attack on an organization. Loss frequency is likelihood times attack success probability. What's probability?
The chances something's gonna happen.
Chances something's going to happen. It's a percent, isn't it? So 35%. What would that be in terms of probability?
One out there, like three chance.
1 in 3 chance? Yes. And decimal wise, 35% changes to 0.35. Yeah. So when you're doing this formula, you have to make sure it's in decimal form. What would happen if you left it as 35?
Does not compute.
Does not compute. Yeah, your magnitude would be pretty immense, wouldn't it? People laugh at you if you go to a meeting. Um, this I could see like you're talking about becoming a hacker, a legitimate hacker. Um, what would a company want from you? They just want you to go out and have fun, run utilities against their servers.
They want me. They want you to take a methodical method to test every possible way in.
And what would you have to present to them?
Your success rate.
Yeah, your success rate and in the reports, right?
And how you managed to get into the server.
Right. Now you probably won't be able to tell them the value of their asset. They might have to provide that piece. So you might have to work with somebody in the company, and you say, "Man, you could hack into this server in this particular building."
And I think they also have to write up basically a way to fix it.
The way to fix it, right? And combined with that is if you take the value, you have to figure is it worth fixing. We had a machine shop at IFR. Do you think it'd matter very much if somebody hacked in the machine shop? Probably wouldn't, would it? So. Okay, so that's what they're talking about with the probability, and then you multiply that by the expected loss from a successful attack, plus uncertainty of estimates of all stated values. See, I think that'd be the most boring part about being a white hat hacker.
If you have
The reporting.
The hacking, I think the technical name is probably penetration tester.
Right. Yeah, there's actually a certificate on that with CompTIA. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a new one that they added just within the last 3 or 4 months. I think the boring part would be though to document all that. I think it'd be fun to run the utilities and so forth, but to write that all up would be mind numbing. But I don't like reporting. Assessing risk acceptability. For each threat and associated vulnerabilities that have residual risk, create ranking of relative risk levels. Residual risk is leftover risk after organization has done everything feasible to protect its assets. Feasible means you got so much money to work with, right? So, I mentioned this already about the server room at IFR. Initially, when they had our first server room, it was wasn't a raised floor, so flooding could come in and damage the equipment. Had the air conditioner in the window. People could pull the air conditioner out, come in. Air conditioner could malfunction. Humidity would cause problems. Um, is there humidity alarms? Yeah, we eventually could afford one of those. They would get notified when the humidity level became so much because it's damaging to the equipment. The water system that would flow down. Um, Now, all those they knew were wrong. It wasn't that they were sitting there saying, "Well, we don't know how to protect it." It's all that costs money. Documenting the results of risk assessment. Final summarized document is the ranked vulnerability risk worksheet. Worksheet describes asset relative value, vulnerability, loss frequency, loss magnitude. Ranked vulnerability risk worksheet is the initial working document for the next step in the risk management process, assessing and controlling risk. I'm going to skip over some of this. Open, fair approach to risk assessment. Identify scenario components. Evaluate loss event frequency. Evaluate probable loss magnitude. Derive and articulate risk. Got our risk control. Involves selection of control strategies, justification strategies, upper management, and implementation / monitoring / ongoing assessment of adopted controls. Once the ranked vulnerability list risk worksheet is complete, the organization must choose one of 5 strategies to control each risk: defense, transference, mitigation, acceptance, or termination. Defense attempts to prevent exploitation of vulnerability. This could be a lot of different methods to do. How could you defend? What is a vulnerability?
A weak point? Yeah.
It's a weak point.
Yeah. So the way you can defend a vulnerability, if I can say it right, is you just put more emphasis on that part.
That part.
To make sure that everything else is equal.
Like if you have an old operating or old browser, what do you force everybody to do?
You force them to use a new browser.
Yeah, use a new browser, one that's protected, right? So maybe firewalls. So there's a lot of things. Now they say there are 3 common methods of risk avoidance: application policy, education training, and applying technology. Applying technology could be software based, could be hardware based. Transference. This strategy attempts to shift risk to other assets, processes, or organizations. If lacking, organizations should hire individuals, firms that provide security management and administration expertise. Organization may then transfer risks associated with the management of complex systems to another organization experienced in dealing with those risks. Does Callie sit there and worry about the security behind Blackboard?
Sorry, I missed the question. I was looking about Spider.
Oh. Does Callie worry about the security risks behind Blackboard?
I'm sure. I'm sure they would if there was a threat, but if they haven't secured, then they probably don't have to worry about it.
Why don't they have to worry about it?
Because they have pretty.
Where do they transfer it to?
Through all the.
You may have not typed it directly. You may have just always go into the links. I'm going to go to Callie.blackboard.com. What do you notice about the URL?
It's long.
It's long. Yeah. The what I highlighted.
It's just keywords.
Who owns the server?
Chrome.
Blackboard. At blackboard.com, and the reason I brought that up is a lot of you may not even know this. When you put the dots in front of it and then names, those are like breakdowns of that server. So this is off Blackboard server. So they're doing it all, aren't they? Does Callie even probably worry about security at all?
Should, but they probably don't.
Not at all. Only if something goes wrong.
That's typical.
If something goes wrong, like if we're getting hacked into 5 times, they're on the phone to Blackboard and they're saying, "What's going on? Why can't you protect this? We paid you to host our server." So that's what it's talking about with the transference. Mitigation attempts to reduce the impact of an attack rather than reduce the success of the attack itself. You got your incident response plan, disaster recovery, business continuity. Your data at home. What's your incident response plan for your banking information at home? Cards you may have, debit cards, bank statements. Yeah. Now look what this says. Define the actions taken while the incident is in progress. Somebody's stealing your information.
Well, I mean, if someone steals all the, naps all the files off of here, I have them in that OneDrive.
It's in progress. How about if it's computer based?
That's what Frank said.
What would you do at that point?
Well, if someone stole my stuff off of here, I have them.
In progress.
Oh, it's currently being stolen?
Yeah.
So there's someone at my computer stealing it?
Well, that's another scenario. But maybe you notice somebody's sitting there and you see things being transferred off.
Okay, I would probably call the police. They're just sitting there on my computer.
And that's right. If somebody is stealing your paper documents, stealing your debit card, you'd call the police, right? That's your incident response. For your computer, what would you do?
I'd go into airplane.
Airplane mode? I'd probably unplug it real quick, shut it down.
My laptop would just stay.
Like that, and then.
Yeah. Or you can just shut it, right? But that doesn't. It just goes into sleep. Yeah. I turned it off. You keep closing my computer. I stopped that.
But see, that's what you have to decide on your own side. What would you do to stop it? Disaster recovery. Preparations for the recovery process. How would you handle the disaster recovery there?
Disaster.
Yeah.
Calling that one place, that one company that fixed their home really well. If you have a flood, everything.
This is your planning. You're planning something's gone wrong. What are you going to do?
Something's gone wrong. You most likely have a backup store, so you use the backup, right? I just use my backup if it's computer based. If someone stole my documents, I don't know what I would do there.
Well, they're stealing banking information, so who would you call? Your bank. Yeah, call your bank. Say, hey, freeze my account, close my account. Somebody stole all my information. They got my debit card. So yeah, do that. Business continuity plan. How do you carry on? Barely. Ask the bank to
reinstate a new card.
Yeah, give you a new card. Open a new account. Transfer the money over that to a new account. So it's not even under the old account. Now those are 3 types of plans, just for a very simple thing at home. Do a lot of people know or even think along those lines, though? No,
I'm sure some people do, but not everyone.
not everyone. It's amazing to me how many people have their information stolen, and they don't go to these steps to protect themselves. Like if you lose your wallet, some of you have debit cards.
That's well, I mean, I don't have debit cards, but that's happened to me.
You don't have debit cards, and you're fine there.
Well, I had my driver's license in there.
So I could take your driver's license and
Pass yourself off as me. So
yeah, go open up a bunch of accounts. Have to get somebody that's skinny and has a kind of blondish hair. Go open up a bunch of accounts and you got blonde hair? I don't know, brown hair, brunette. Okay.
somewhere around there.
It was me in high school.
There's a bunch of
Wasn't me in high school. I mean, I just kept the same picture all the time.
I mean, it's a farm clinic, so there's
I haven't been able to.
they have until I'm supposed to be the age of 21 to use all that stuff that they need.
See, I'm having I need to come up with this right here. Let me see. Yeah, these plans here. Got 3 types of plans. Why do I need to worry about those in my my daily lives?
So you know how to take care of an incident, how to recover from said incident, and how to continue from said incident.
Yeah.
Interesting. I
What
mean,
is
I don't know what
Am I getting older?
Yes.
Could I fall over the stroke tomorrow?
Yes.
Possibly could. So my incident response. Define actions to be taken while incident is in progress. What's the obvious one there?
Call 911.
Call 911, right? I'm not, something's wrong. Disaster recovery plan. How have I prepared for that?
Life insurance.
That's if I die.
Just anticipating stroke at all times.
Anticipating stroke at all times, yeah. Mitigation procedures, maybe eating healthy, taking or not vitamins, aspirin.
Do some more exercise.
Do some more exercise.
Okay, don't do exercise.
Don't do exercise, yeah. I actually have a short-term disability, maybe long-term too, paying extra for it, just in case something happens. That way, my family will get money so they can carry on. So yeah, these type of things you encounter throughout your life. They're just not information security, but you have to think about these things. How am I going to plan for this to happen? How am I going to recover from them? How am I going to continue on? Therapy. Physical therapy. Yeah. We haven't really done this for our death yet. That's what my wife's my next big plans are. Will, yeah. How do you carry on after you're dead?
I probably should. A lot of people don't like me.
You're not wrong.
There you go.
What are you gonna do? Just like the will's just gonna say parody with all my stuff.
Yeah.
Greedy person.
Now, acceptance and termination. Acceptance, doing nothing to protect a vulnerability and accepting the outcome of its exploitation. Termination, directs organization to avoid business activities that introduce uncontrollable risks. What am I doing here on my computer? My teaching class. I'm going to these websites where I potentially could get a malware. And I told you I'm on the admin account. Go away. My accepting, doing acceptance or termination?
Termination.
No, acceptance. I know I'm vulnerable because I'm under an admin account. But I've installed all this software under the admin account. To redo it would take some time. So I'm accepting it for now. Now terminating, what would that mean? I would not use the admin account. But there'd be some costs associated with that, right? Who's the customer here?
We're all consumers.
You guys are the customers, right? Consumers. But you're the customers. So if I didn't use the admin account right now, I wouldn't be able to meet the needs. Okay, this talks about the summary of it. Selecting a risk control strategy, level of threat, and value of assets should play a major role in the selection of strategy. I think I'm past stuff where I need to be closest to read. Rules of thumb on strategy selection can be applied. When a vulnerability exists, when it can be exploited, when a tax or cost is less than the potential gain, and when potential loss is substantial. It's working. This helps plug in a little thing. There you go. That was wrong. I'm not gonna read that together. Who's a threat agent?
Threat agent, like here.
Yeah.
Any of us.
Dave, you, yeah. You can hack in, so give rise to threats. Then those affect your assets. Goes up to increased risk, so forth. Owners, you take countermeasures, and that reduces your risk. Your idea is to minimize the risk, and so forth. Before implementing one of the control strategies for a specific vulnerability, the organization must explore all consequences of the vulnerability to the information asset. There are several ways to determine advantages, disadvantages of a specific control. Now, a lot of this is just done by one person, like the vice president of IT, here at Cali. He'd be the one to do this. Do you think the president of college would really care about this stuff? Hopefully not, right? Let's see. Cost of items that affect cost of control or safeguard include cost of implementation or acquisition. You're developing something, you're buying something, you're going to implement it. Training fees, setting people off for training, implementation costs, service costs, cost of maintenance. You have to pay every year for it. And maintenance contracts. They had to do this at Coke when you justified spending money, you had to do a return on investment. Coke would not spend money if it didn't bring in money. It didn't make any sense. How about in this room here, if the light goes out, and I call maintenance, and I say, come and fix the light. Well, if one goes out, is that a big deal? No. How about if I had to pay that person to come and do it? Yeah. They'd drive here from Arc City. There'd be some costs there, right? They'd have to bring a company vehicle, their time. If they get paid $20 an hour, I'm guessing. Let's say it's $15 an hour. They get paid $15 an hour. It takes them 3 hours total. Because they have to drive here, right? Have to drive back. Have to get the company vehicle. Have to fill out all the paperwork. There's a work order system we have. And then to replace the light bulb.
So they have to come from Arc City?
Yeah, we don't have any maintenance person here.
But should I not been one of the Jason services at like first someone to
it could be that they'll have that eventually, but you'd be surprised in some of the rinky-dink things they do to fulfill some of these roles. So how much have I just paid them? $15 an hour for 3 hours? $45?
Yeah.
And then the cost of the light bulb? So $50 to get a new light put in. Now, if that had to come out of my budget, if you were at home doing that, would you pay $50? Now, what would you do?
Go to more.
Place it yourself, right? Yeah. Coke Industries, when I was there, they implemented market-based management, and we had to fill contracts out for everything. So if you asked me to do something like that, I'd give you a contract. And I'd say, okay, it's $50 to replace a light bulb. And then you'd make a business decision. And you weren't to make money. You weren't supposed to make a profit, but you're supposed to break even, cover your costs. And they could go outside the company. So they didn't have to go with the people in the company. So if I gave you a cost for that for $50, and you think that's nice, but I can hire this guy down the street here to do it for $5, and he does the same quality job. This is just putting in the light bulb. Who would you have do it?
The guy who gave $5.
Yeah, for $5.
You just spend the same amount in the future.
So very important to understand how to figure this, how to make justifications. When I worked at Coke, we had a 2-year backlog. You go to IT, you ask them for something to be worked on. You basically get started on that project 2 years from now. I'd go to people and I'd say, yeah, I'm here to work on this project. You requested 2 years ago. And they said, what is that? And they said, and I'd tell them and say, who proposed that? And, oh, that person's gone now. And it's just like, well, do you want me to work on it? And sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. For a business for 2 years, is that acceptable? No. They implemented market-based management, where you put more of an understanding on what kind of return are you going to get. You're going to spend that money. What kind of return are you going to get? Our 2-year backlog went down to about 2 weeks. So if a business asked for something to be done, it was worked on within 2 weeks, because they were asking for things that weren't going to bring in money. And that's the thing with security. You can implement, they'll let you spend as much as you want. You go out there to some of those places, they'll sell you every device in the world. Is it going to make you money? Is it going to bring in money? Is it going to save money? Now, those are all things you have to think about. And cost-benefit analysis. Yeah. Implement it, monitor it, and assess the risk controls. Process continues as long as the organization continues to function. Oftentimes, you don't really actively analyze it. Just if something goes wrong, then you can. Not too exciting there. Quantitative versus qualitative risk control practices. What's quantitative?
The amount
of money you put on? What's qualitative?
how big it is.
The what?
Like the quality of it is.
Yeah, kind of a category, what that kind of refers to. Some things you can put money to, sometimes some things you can't. That's what Coke would look at. Some things they couldn't necessarily justify money-wise, but they would just go ahead and do it anyway because they knew it had to be done. I gave you an example earlier, and somebody looked at me like I was crazy. It's like, how much is the grades worth here at Cal? You said $49,000, something like that. He said $3. Do grades have to be protected? They do, don't they? Can I necessarily put a monetary value on that? No, but you still have to justify that with how you spend your money. Benchmarking, best practices. You compare this against industry. Try to figure out what you should do. If I didn't know anything about security, how would I figure out how to protect this building?
Go to college.
Go to college? Sort of.
You guys know training. Have to learn real fast.
Mm-hmm. What would be the best way to go learn it?
Look up on YouTube.
It's the most efficient way of learning.
How about go to Butler?
Or go to Butler.
Ask them what they're doing. Are they going to tell you?
You guys do.
Yeah, they'll tell you. Now, companies won't necessarily. I talked about that one person at Coke got fired, I think.
Yeah.
Posted the information about their network. Private companies won't tell you, but public companies are a lot more open about it, especially if you're not their competitor. So Butler might be a bad one to go with. Go to K-State, go to Southwestern College. We're not competing with Southwestern, are we?
I don't think so.
No. We're kind of working with them. So they might tell us what they're doing.
We're a 2-year school. They're a private 4-year school.
Private 4-year school. And we feed a lot of our students go to Southwestern. So they want to keep a good relationship with us anyway. So yeah, you can get benchmarks from what other people are doing, best practices. Let's see if there's anything else exciting here. That's probably not that exciting because I want to give you something to work on.
Oh, 10:30.
That's why I was going very fast through those. Start skipping.
How much time do we have?
19
There it is. Now you can work together on this or alone. That's up to you. But I want you to outline for 3 specific instances of for a network, for security, your incident response plan, disaster recovery plan, and business continuity plan. For 3 separate items. Not incidences. We're not looking at like the I love you virus hitting. That's too specific. Think about if you had to document every virus that was going to hit. But think of three items you want to plan for.
So 3 separate items. We need to do each of those.
Right. Put a 1-word document. And I'll go put the Dropbox out there.
I told you I'm not your dad. My dad said to me actually. You did it for real. My life is sad, man. Sad life. I was like, Dad. He's like, I'm not your father. Wait.
Really.
But I was a child, so I didn't know what he meant by that. So I ain't your daddy. My dad.
Like this black earth later.
Guys, let's go. Let's go.
Now with this, and again, it should be security related. But if you can't think of anything security related, then choose like servers. Think about the server. What would you do? What's one example?
I was going to do a break-in, or does it need to be computer related?
It should be related to the computer somehow.
Okay. Yeah. So my house was broken.
That would be computer related, right? Somebody breaking in and stealing company assets. Stealing a computer.
I do all my projects over breaking.
We're working on a project now.
Did you like stuff from broken?
Has it always been there?
Oh, no. 19. 18. You'll never know the pain. Have you seen my no, this one. Whoa, shack.
Alright, guys. So here's how we do it. And let's just go.
I just didn't know
It's upsetting. I didn't realize I had more walls in the room in there. So where am I going to put this knee wall?
You can put it in front of the fire exit.
You can put it in front of that so it doesn't blind me every morning. Nice.
Yeah. Or, there. Maybe.
Put it right in front of the desk.
Maybe cover that window as well, because sometimes there's like the light is through there.
I have thought about that. That would be a good.
What's the plan?
Lots of distractions.
All right. This one.
What?
I wanted to hold it and then
JC, you're with us too, alright? What's going on?
What's going on?
What's going on, guys? Scenario what?
IR and then DR. Yeah. Okay.
Hey guys, how's it going?
I don't know. I want to do someone steals all my data. Data theft.
But now it's up. So now we do.
I have I'm doing it. I'm doing
We are together.
data theft.
Probably put it for Sunday, but the other rest of the time today. I've been putting everything I put out there due Sundays.
IR. That's the.
Everything to this house direction.
Oh, you're doing just computer?
Yeah.
Why not do
Three straight years you can use.
instant recovery? So this is what instant recovery.
I would probably do that.
So it would be why? So I guess it would just be easier to steal data or easier to steal a computer. Oh, great, you brought up a point.
That's what happens when you're smart.
Alright, JC.
Alright, you're getting I'm just gonna.
Alright, so IR.
So you would just report that to the police.
So you want three
or to the voice of that. Does that make sense?
IR plan.
No.
You want
Police of
this one has one at least one IR plan, one
Report the theft to the
plan, and
police.
one report to community plan.
For each one, yeah. So like for each item you identify, like this theft of assets, I'd have a item for each one of those.